Well, this was supposed to be a Minecraft channel. But I started getting into Nuzlocke and I don't think I'm going to stop just with the first one, don't you think? So, we are Nuzlocke today, Soul Silver. And yeah, I'm probably the worst Nuzlocke in the world. Let's jump right into it. So let's go back through the rules again, shall we? This time with all of them rather than just the big ones. We are playing on set mode and no items allowed. We can't level past the gym leader's ace. We can only catch the first Pokemon we encounter in each route, and all fights are to death. If it faints, it's gone, done, and one box to the left in the morgue. I think this place doesn't technically have a cemetery like Kanto did, but well, it means that ghosts roam free in this region. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, we start the game as usual, tree name Professor number 1, choosing our aesthetic, and writing our name, and giving our rival... We say hi to our mom before leaving the house for eternity, and go see the other tree name Professor. Along the way we find this region's fetish voyeurs. This time, the tree name Professor gives us our first Pokemon right away, and we choose Spike, Cyndaquil. He sends us to see Mr. Pokemon, pretty self-righteous name for someone that just gives us an egg. When we come out of the house, we get a phone call stating the urgency of the situation, so we need to attend serious issues, such as picking up fruit from this tree. We get jumped by a punk on our way back, and after we beat him, he accidentally drops his ID. Wait, I've seen this name before. We get to the lab and talk to the cops. Guess I fit the description of a dude in black with red hair to the police, but we give him the name of the punk. It's him again. No, sir. Anyway, we go see our mum again, as the role of the mother in this game is way bigger than in previous games. Now she's the bank as well! And we head out into the wilderness only to see Lila and her water chew catching Pokemon. Thank God, this time she actually attacks it before throwing the Pokeball. And our own encounter begins. And this time we plan the whole thing from the start with an added feature, the day-night cycles. So in this route at night, we can get either Hoot or Rattata. On the next one we can get, guessed it, either a Hoot or a Rattata. But in Route 46, we can either get a Rattata or a Geodude, meaning that if we catch at night on routes 29 and 30, we have a guaranteed Geodude in Route 46, which is going to come really handy for a ton of battles later on. We make it to Route 31, and it's magically daytime, lucky us since we don't have any encounters at night here, and we find some familiar faces in here and in the Dark Cave. One of the brand new things this game brings to the table is eggs, and it turns out that we can get 4 of them total. We can get Mareep, Wooper, Slugma, and Togepi, that it's part of the main story. And I only realised that thanks to Nuzlocke.app, really helpful tool to check all the encounters and level caps for your Nuzlockes. Check the link in the description, and the secret code generator, another site so we know exactly what to say to this guy to get all 3 eggs. Again, link in the description. So, with our egg, we head to Sprout Tower, and look at that. It's nighttime again. We sweep our way through the monks with Newt. We find out that Dotsub is kind of a dick, and we get the Flash TM. Well, at least this time we didn't have to lose a starter to get it. On our way out, we found another familiar face. How convenient it is that in a place that you can get only rats during the day and ghosts during the night, it is magically nighttime, right? We make our way to the Flying type gym, where you would expect some of the 2nd gen Flying types, right? Wrong. We get our Bordelass to destroy a Pidgey and a Pidgeotto, and we're out of here. And the planning in advance is starting to pay off. And while we jog around Violet City, let's talk about the eggs. You can find them all in Violet City, so they should count as this encounter. However, the rule that I said regarding the eggs was that it's not about where they are made, but where they are born. So there are a ton of routes with no encounters or post-game encounters, so we can balance that one out, sacrificing some routes for something useful. So with this in mind, we have our first jogging session in Violet City to hatch the Mareep egg. Route 31, and we use a repel to skip this route and save it. Well, we used a repel manipulation strat to get ourselves a super useful Bellsprout on Route 31. In Union Cave, we learn from our mistakes and put the highest level Pokemon we have up front to definitely save this one for later. We make it to Route 33 and we find someone dressed as a Rocket Grunt. Haha! It is him! Grunty boy! This time they even have a more ridiculous plan than the mutant clone Pokemon from Hell. This time they are trafficked with Slowpoke tails apparently. we team up with an old man who immediately falls down the well, and we get a Slowpoke in the Slowpoke well. We also get rid of Team Rocket, but that's, business as usual. And we get to the Bug-type gym. It would be a shame if someone had a Rock-type that could smush all the bugs in the gym, and a Poison Flying type to just make sure that we don't get poisoned by any chance. Again, Boldlass for the win. As we're heading into Ilex Forest, we get jumped by Nuts up again. We get Morbin Time for the Ghastly, Humraig for the Croconaw, and finally Boldlass for the Zubat. For a guy who prides himself on using only the strongest Pokemon, not a big challenge. Now we get into Ilex Forest, and we have to corner this Farfetch'd to get the cut HM. This is one of the many places we're going to need these HMs to access the next area and lose one of the moves we'd like to keep. Perfect game design. While we look for the birds, we encounter Future, Awesome Blossom, and we get our bruh to learn Headbutt. Now that we have Headbutt, we can start getting some more encounters in places we wouldn't be able to, such as Azalea Town. But just in case we don't get it, well, guess we won't need to Headbutt anything anymore then. I had to actually study the algorithm for the Heracross to spawn. As it turns out, it depends on the tree array and the ID number of the player, only to get a small chance of getting in. But after the Bellsprout part, we get a little bit of luck. Now we can keep it going through Ilex Forest, help a damsel in distress along the way, and have a pretty awkward conversation with Lyra and her grandma. And we finally get to Goldenrod City for one of the fights that traumatized a generation, the Wind fight. Because for some reason, having a fast as cow with a recovery move wasn't enough. Now it has Scrappy and can hit ghosts with Somp. Fun times. But we do have a plan, and it all starts with Chomper, because this time it does have an awesome ability in Guts, so we have a pretty strong attacker for the Whidbey fight. We also have Bruh and Humraig to put it to sleep or paralyze it, so should be just fine. We go get our radio card just to flex our knowledge on Whidbey before the fight, and we get to the gym. Now the plan is to put to sleep the Clefairy with Bruh and still with it, and when the Miltank comes in, use Yawn to try to put it to sleep. Problem is, we flinch and we need to go to plan B. We bring out Humraig and we're able to paralyze it. Problem is, it has a Lumberry. So we send out plan C. Just sending out Ringo and killing it with 2 brick breaks. It was pretty risky one, as a flinch or a crit would have meant we broke our skull against a tree for nothing, but in the end, we make it past Whitney. So, the first crybaby of the region gives us the badge, and we go to get our encounters around Goldenrod, a Drowsy in Route 34, and a Nidoran in Route 35. This was all to try to make the most of the encounters, since in Route 36 we are getting the Sudowoodo with the watering can, because I refuse to call it a squirt bottle. Anyway, we get to the Pokeathlon Dome, and we have our second jogging session to get ourselves a Togepi, since there are no encounters in here. Having a Togekiss would be so nice, but the shiny stone can only be obtained in the post-game or in the bug catching contest, and in Gen 4 there is no fairy type, so limited usage, but still, better to have it in the PC than to miss it later on. Or we leave Goldenrod for good, we go check the underground and find a place where you can get your picture taken with Team Rocket uniform. Pretty weird how an evil organization is able to operate a business like this in the open, but well, guess they have the proper permits. But before we move on to the Shaky Tree, let's catch one of the best pieces of music I've heard in a Pokemon game ever. You've ruined it! We go bother the Shaky Tree with the watering can and move on to Ecruteak City. We meet Bill at the Pokemon Center. Good to see it didn't become a Clefairy again, but before we can tackle the gym, we have to pick up Morty at the Burn Tower. In Burn Tower, we meet a guy that is really into that blue dog down there, and we get jumped by Nutsub again. We deal with the Ghastly with Morbin Time, we have to switch to Ringo for the Magnemite, have to switch again to Bruh for the Zubat, and finish it with Humraig and finish the fight, taking care of the Croconaw. Go downstairs to pet the dogs, and we are ready to face Morty. So the fight with Morty is a tricky one, as we don't have any dark types, but we have the next best thing, Morbin Time. We send him out to take care of the Ghastly and leave the Haunter in the red, but we get put to sleep and we have to send in Spike, who is able to finish it. For the Gengar, we have our secret weapon, Chomper with Crunch and pre-burned. So with this massive attack, we're able to deal with the Gengar and the Haunter and get our 4th badge. We go to the Kimono Girl's place to see a rather uncomfortable exchange between a Rocket Grunt and one of the Kimono Girls, who is more than capable of dealing with him, but for our courage, we receive the HM for serve. We skip the encounter on Route 38, and on our way to Olivine City we run into the future Safari owner, another great chance of wasting a possibly run-changing encounter. We get to the city and we run into Nutsub, who this time doesn't want an ass whooping, but tells us the gym leader has an ill Pokemon on the lighthouse. I wonder how many ships have crashed against the port without it. We get our Good Rod, another awesome way of getting new encounters, and we get tasked with finding the medicine in Cyanwood City. What a coincidence, we need to get there anyway to fight the next gym leader. We make our way across the sea without encountering any Pokemon, and we arrive at Cyanwood City. In here, we find the blue doggo and the guy simping for it, and he wants a duel for some reason. He sends out a Drowsy, of which we take care of with Morbin Time. Against his Electrode, we send in Borderlass, and against his Haunter, we send in Chomper to finish the fight. You're gonna have to do better if you want the blue doggo's attention, mate. We get to the fighting type gym, and we should be alright with the many flying types Well, change of plans. We might have to think this one through. So, with a brand new plan, we realise we didn't need that fight at all, and we start the fight with Chuck. For his Primeape, I tried to bait in the Focus Punch with Borderlass, but he decides to go for Double Team. If he keeps on doing that, this is going to get tricky. So I curse it, and we survive a Rock Slide with 3 HP. We send in Borderlass, who can definitely take a Rock Slide, but he goes again for Double Team, and this is definitely going to get tricky. I thought he was going to go again for Focus Punch, but he goes for a Rock Slide on a Rock type, and we lose Spookus. We send in Morbin Time, who is definitely faster than the Primeape, and we're able to finish it. For the Poliwrath, since he doesn't have a Rock type attack, we decide to stay in and confuse it. We're able to do some damage with a couple wing attacks, but we get paralyzed. So we send in the super bulky Sleepover to finish the fight with a Psybeam. We finally bring the medicine to the lighthouse, and now the map gets pretty weird. So our level cap is 34 for the Mahogany Gym, but the closest gym is the Cyanwood one, so we'll have to come back later. We run into a guy who gives us strength in Route 42, we wave to the blue doggo again, and we make it to Mahogany, where apparently a podcast is turning people red. We go check on the Lake of Rage, where we catch a Magikarp for safety, and we obliterate the red Gyarados as the abomination it is, because we don't care for shinies in here. At the scene of the crime, we meet Lance. Finally, the authorities getting involved with censoring damaging messages on social media. We go with him to... Whoa. Yup, that dude died. Question is, why did you need to kill him if you already knew where the stairs were? Anyway, we get to the best part of any Pokemon game. Fighting Rocket Grunt again and again and again and again. And again, and again, again, and again, and again, and again. Oh look, a Koffing. And again. Oh look, a Murderer. And again, and again, and again, and again, and again. And just like any other grunt, Nutsub appears out of the blue to complain about people telling him he's a terrible trainer. Not sure what you're doing here, but any time is a good time to tell you how shit you are. We finally make it to Giovanni's room and... Wait, that's not Giovanni. It's another fucking grunt! Yeah, you can have pink hair and all, but you're still a fucking grunt. This one is supposed to be trickier than the others, but with a level 22 Zubat, you're not getting too far at this point. So we hit Psybeam 1, 2, 3, and 4 times, and win the fight. Now I was so busy being annoyed by all the Rocket Grunts that I completely forgot that we were supposed to stop a podcast from hell. Lucky us, this Murkrow has memorized the password, and somehow crows now work like parrots, and we get to the generator room. In here, yet another grunt with fancy hair tries to stop us, but this time we have the help of the murderer of innocent bystanders. Now, this could be the classic tricky double battle, but when your teammate has a level 40 Dragonite, you don't need to fear that much, unless they play terribly. We get rid of the Arbok with a Psybeam and the Dragonite flies away, and the Murkrow comes in. I decide to stay in and headbutt the Murkrow while the Dragonite comes back to kill the Drowsy. The Dragonite misses the Thunder on the Murkrow and we get rid of the Grimer, but he leaves us in the yellow with Pursuit. And now the tricky bit. If we stay in, he might kill us with Pursuit if the Thunder misses again. If we switch, he definitely kills us with Pursuit. So being the smart cookie I am, we switch and we lose Sleep over. With Spike in, we are able to get rid of the Murkrow and the Gloom in the back. Now that we stop the podcast of death, Lance makes us kill all the poor electrodes that are powering this thing. There is definitely another way of stopping this, but hey, what do you expect from kill first, ask questions only in between killings? And after all of this irrelevance, we can get back to the gym leaders with Prize and his ice types. This one starts with Humrai dealing with the seal, and as the Piloswine comes in, we bring in Bruh. With Bruh, we hit the first surf as we lose around 1/3 of our HP to a Mud Bomb, and we see it's dead to a crit on the next turn. Luckily, he misses, and we're able to yawn to put it to sleep in a couple turns. Knowing that the Piloswine has used 2 ground-type attacks in a row against Bruh, we send in Newt, who is immune to ground, and he wastes his last turn before taking a nap. With the Piloswine asleep, we can send in Spike to finish it with a Flame Wheel. Alright, with 2 Flame Wheels. Alright, this is starting to get annoying, and to be honest, a little bit scary, because this Piloswine has been asleep for way too long. But we get to the Dugong, and I was going to switch out, but turns out this Dugong only has Ice-type attacks, Rest and Sleep Talk, so we can take it easy with Spike and finish the fight with Humrai, who takes a couple Aurora Beams like a champ, and is able to throw a couple discharges to get rid of the Dugong. And we go straight to the Jasmine Fight, back-to-back gym fights, this one against Steel types. And lucky us, Spike just learned Lava Plume, so we breeze past her Magnemite, and lucky us, her Steelix goes for Screech instead of throwing a Rock Tomb. If only it had Earthquake, it might have survived this fight. But we're able to breeze past Jasmine as well. So turns out that Mom has a really good eye for shopping, as she gets us a Silk Scarf to boost normal type attacks and a Moonstone to evolve our Nidoran. And we get go into black. Whoa, what a scam! Well, since we are not allowed to move on, we have another jogging session in Mahogany to hatch the Wooper egg. We also go to Union Cave to find the patch of grass in the ruins of Alph to get a Natu. We go to Route 38 aiming for a Magnemite, but we get a Meowth, so we get our Magnemite in Route 39. We go to Burn Tower where we have a guaranteed Magmar thanks to the Dupe Claws, although it took forever to find. Now for the fishing encounters, we are aiming for a Chinchou anywhere, and we get it first try back home in Newbark Town. We fish in Olivine where we get ourselves a Krabby and a Staryu in Route 40. We keep the catching spree going by hatching the Slugma egg in Cliff Edge Gate, we get a Tentacruel in Signwood City, a Shelder in Route 41, and we try to get a Kozila at night in Cherry Grove. It took me way too long to realise they only show up during the day. All of this was just to avoid the next bit that I knew we had to go through right after that Rage Candy Bar scam.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Yup. We are back in Goldenrod for another showdown with Team Rocket, this time with a whole new team, just to make sure we don't lose any of the crucial parts. There is another hot take coming from the radio tower, so we have to go enforce some censorship. But they are not letting us in unless we are wearing the proper outfit, so we go where we took the picture with the Team Rocket outfit to try to sneak in. And wouldn't you know, the second we are going to sneak in, Nutsub appears to ruin the master plan by blowing our cover. And thanks to that, we have another round of fighting grunts. You'll pay for this one, Nutsub. So here's another summary of the fight.
Oh,
Larry, what the hell are you doing?
Larry!
Larry, you can't just... Oh,
Larry! Oh, are you alright? How did...
Larry!
We make it to the director's room and... it's another fucking grunt. This time he thinks he's super creative with a team full of self-destructing coughings, but we're able to take care of it with Xavier the Magneton and Shake It, the Sudowoodo. We go to the underground to try to find the real director, and we find a kimono girl for some reason, and another battle with Nutsa. This guy has the ability of just showing up when it's the least convenient. He starts with a Golbat into our Boulderlass, and we wreck it with a Rock Blast despite being confused. He sends in a Sneasel, and we need to switch into Xavier to wreck it with a Magnet Bomb. Then he thinks the best idea is to send in Feraligatr against our Electric type. We get crit with a Water Gun, but we're able to paralyze it, so we throw a Thunder Shock and send in Jelly to finish it. Next is a Magnemite, of which we take care of with Boulderlass. And finally, a Haunter that is definitely no match for our Chomper. Now, this is what you get for blowing our cover. We get through some more super exciting grunt fights, and we get to the director who was trapped in the basement of the supermarket and nobody noticed it, somehow, and he gives us the keys to the whole building. On our way to the final boss fight, we get to fight the Blue Grunt, who has a Golbat that is breakfast for Boulderlass and a Weezing that is lunch for Xavier. And after the Blue Grunt, the Red Grunt. She starts with an Arbok, who is lunch for Boulderlass, then a Vileplume, who is some kind of mid-afternoon tea for Gotta Go Fast, and the Murkrow, who killed Sleepover, who is dinner. Well, more like sweet, sweet dessert in the shape of revenge. You get the point. We finally make it to the real bad guy, this dude we haven't seen or heard of in the entire game, who apparently was making all the evil podcasts and controversial messages on public networks for his senpai to notice him. Definitely a step down from world domination, but hey, who am I to judge? We start the fight with a Houndour into our super bulky water type Jelly. The Houndoom suffers the same fate as the younger version, and finally a Coughing, which we get rid of with Xavier. So you're telling me that we have gone through God knows how many grunts, you haven't let me progress in the game because you wanted Giovanni to notice you for just a puny fight against another grunt whose best Pokemon is a level 39 Houndoom? I'm not frustrated, you are, just shut up. So we are finally able to make some progress, and we get to the Icy Path where we get ourselves a Jinx, solve some puzzles, push some ladies, and make it to the final gym, Claire and her dragons. But before we tackle that, some more catching is required. We start with a Poliwag in Blackthorn City to guarantee a Remoraid in Route 44, and this is a crucial one as Remoraid is the only thing that learns Ice Beam naturally, and we don't want to spend days in the game corner for the TM. We use Headbutt in Exeggutor for an Execute, then head to Mount Mortar for an irrelevant Machamp, just wanted to get that one out of the way, and we go check the Safari Zone, where at the gate we get a Pineco. So it turns out that if we planned it better, we could have guaranteed an encounter with a Larvitar in the mountains bit, but it's either that or a Lickitung that we could have caught in routes 38 or 39. So in the end, we find the Lickitung and we're not even able to catch it, so yeah, not a big deal. We finish our catching spree in Route 47 with our Seal, and we are finally ready to tackle the dragons. So I wanted to try one thing in the gym before we first faced Claire, and that was Jinx. Jinx could be a really good special attacker. Problem is, the best special attack it has is Powdered Snow. And although the first results were promising, we decided to go with a completely different team for the actual fight with the gym leader. So this one can get very tricky, so we have to an almost turn-by-turn plan for this one. We shouldn't have a problem with the Gyarados, but the Dragoness with the coverage moves can get tricky because they are exactly the same, so we need a way of knowing what's coming to make sure we don't get surprised by it. And also there is no way of dealing super effective damage on the Kingdra, so that we'll have to figure it out as we go. So we start with Xavier to deal with the Gyarados, but also to make sure the next thing that comes in is the Dragonair with a super effective move on it, the one with Fire Blast. Knowing the Fire Blast is coming, we send in Jelly, who sets up 2 layers of toxic spikes. Then we try to get some damage on it, and we're even able to kill it with a crit. And now the second Dragonair comes in, this one with Thunder. So we decide to send in Pine. This one is kind of expendable as it has moves for damage and explosion just in case everything gets tricky. We're able to kill the Dragonair without exploding, And now we face the Kingdra, and this is where the 2 layers of toxic spikes are important. Her most damaging move is Hydro Pump, so we send in our Pooper with Water Absorb. Then she's going to use Hyper Beam or Dragon Balls, so we send out Pine, who is able to take a Smoke Screen, definitely. Especially when we are going to bring back Pooper for the Hydro Pump again. We start hitting it with an Earthquake to start lowering its health for good, but we miss, but the Toxic is starting to do some damage. So we throw another Earthquake and the Toxic is able to finish the job. All the planet definitely paid off, as we didn't lose a Pokemon in one of the trickiest fights of the game. So, as Whitney did, she refuses to give us the badge and we have to go to the Dragon's Den. In here, we meet the Elders.
Before you get the final badge, you must answer me these questions 5.
Anyway, after answering with the purest heart and the cleanest notes from the wiki, we get our final badge and we can start thinking about the Pokemon League. And it all starts with catching a Dratini in this cave, headbutting a tree in Route 43 for a Venonat, catching a Spearow in Route 42 and an Ekans in Route 33, getting an Onix in Union Cave, and... well, we were going to get a Vulpix or a Sandblade here, so it doesn't really matter. We do get our Vulpix in Route 48 and an Eevee in Goldenrod City. We are lucky enough to get a Skarmory in Route 45 and a Horsey in Will Island. Now we are ready to go to the Pokemon League. We drop by the Professor's lab to have a chat and we... guess we'll have to go see the Kimono Girls. Before we get there, we get one important member of the future team, an Umbreon. And for this, we have another never-ending jogging session, since it's a friendship evolution, and the best way of doing it's either killing people together or jogging. We run into Nutsub again, and he warns us that the Kimono Girls are a tricky bunch, and we head to have 6 fights in a row with the different evolutions. The first one is against an Umbreon, and we have Ringo to deal with it. The second one is against an Espeon, and we need to switch in our own Umbreon and finish it with a feint attack. The third one is against a Flareon, and we have our Bacargo to deal with it with a couple Ancient Powers. Fourth comes a Jolteon, who gets dealt with by Pooper and an Earthquake. And the last one is a Vaporeon, who we can deal with Pooper again. And I guess the sixth one is going to be their god, Lugia. So basically they force me to fight them for me to meet their god, who I am definitely not interested in, and they force me to fight it just to see if I can catch it. Well, Humraig is better than Lugia, so sorry about your god. And we can finally get to the Pokemon League. We take our first step onto Kanto and head up to Victory Road, where we have one last fight against Nutsub. He starts with a Sneasel who gets completely wrecked by Ringo's close combat. Then a Golbat comes in, so we have to switch to Humraig. Problem is, Humraig gets confused a couple times and Grit, so we need to bring in our Corvi, that. Our Skarmory starts throwing Steel Wings, but when we are about to finish it, we get confused again. But luckily, he's able to kill the Golbat. Sadly, what comes next is not good for a bird, a Magneton with Magnet Pull, who traps the Skarmory and kills it. Against the Magneton, we send in Pooper, who is able to kill it despite my Bisclick on Surf instead of Earthquake. Nutsub's next Pokemon is a Haunter, and lucky us, we have our Umbreon, who is able to finish it off. Despite getting confused yet again, I don't know how this fight had so many hidden ourselves. But we're able to make it to his last Pokemon, Feraligatr. Against it, we send in Pooper, who is immune to any water attacks he throws, so we can put it to sleep with Yawn. send in Ringo, knowing he's not going to go for a water attack against Pooper, and finish the fight with 2 close combats while the Feraligatr is asleep. And I completely forgot this guy had a Kadabra, but well, having our Umbreon, it doesn't take that much to finish the fight for good this time, right? Well, it takes a little bit longer, but yes, we're able to finish the Kadabra as well, thanks to, well, finally the confusion going our way. And with that, we defeated Nutsub for the final time. In the same way, you should completely defeat that subscribe button if you have remotely enjoyed this. Alright, so let's plan the Elite Four team. We start with Will, who specialises in Psychic types, so with our Umbreon we should be covered. We would also need Savior for the Chartreuse and the Slowbro, as they don't have any Fire type coverage, and we should be able to deal with the Exeggutor with Spike. Next comes Koga, and with 3 different Bug types there's a strong case for Spike to deal with all of these. Then the Muck only has Poison type attacks, so we should be able to deal with it with Savior, and same for the Crobat. Bruno could get trickier as he has more coverage moves, well, it has a Hitmonchan with covering moves, but still we should be able to use Bruh for most of the team, and we will need something for the Hitmonchan, although that Thunder Punch might get scary. For Karen, we should be able to deal with the Vileplume with Spike and the Murkrow with Savior. We would have the Umbreon for the Gengar, and the Umbreon, it's a matter of dealing with a really bulky Pokemon. The big problem is the Houndoom. If we use Bruh, we might get wrecked with the Dark Pulse, and if we use anything else, we might get wrecked if he goes for a nasty plot. But we need to plan for one more fight, so we'll check that one later. And finally, Lance. This one should be the same case as the fight in Fire Red, just having something with Ice Beam for the Dragonites, Savior for the Gyarados, and being careful with the Charizard and the Aerodactyl. So we are looking at a team with Magneton, Umbreon, Typhlosion, and Slowbro, and with 2 extra water types with Ice Beam, we should be able to deal with all of it. So for the movesets and that Houndoom that we left for later, we should be able to deal with it with Typhlosion, with Focus Blast and Wide Lens to try to increase the accuracy, but still it's going to be a risky one. Well, we'll have to see how it goes. And now for the official introductions. It's showtime, baby! Get ready to talk the holy Untitled Champions from a few weeks ago. Next is race for the awesome Venomoth! Starting out on the Pokemon Sport from round 39, as the savior of the team is Savior the Magneton. On the first Pokemon Sport, our starter made it all the way to the Pokemon League, dropped into the New York town, it's Spike the Lycanroc. On the Pokemon Sport, the lightning rod from New York town, it's Flashlight the Lantern. On the Physical Sport, from the slow world, we have Slowbro. On the bulky physical super sport, the friendliest of joggers who's stocked with the Typhlosion from Goldenrod City, it's Proteanish the Umbreon. And finally, the original water ground type, Murkrow in our team, hatched in Hollywood Town, it's Pooper the Quacksire. Now we get to the real challenge. We start with Will, who opens with a Chartreuse, who uses B first but is not able to deal that much damage to Savior, and we get rid of it with 1 discharge. Now the Jinx comes in and we hesitate, but we throw a Magnet Bomb. But that Psychic does a ton of damage, so we switch to Bruh while he uses a full restore. We don't take that much damage from a Psychic, and we get some damage with the Surf, but we are put to sleep, and we spend 2 turns asleep, and after a special defense drop, we are not going to risk it, and we send Proteanish to get rid of the Jinx with a feint attack. Next comes the Exeggutor, and we send in Spike on a Reflect, if only you use Light Screen instead, and we kill it with a Flamethrower. Slowbro comes in, and we need to switch into Flashlight, who is able to get it with 3 discharges, and the final Shatu comes out. He's able to confuse us, and we are not able to hit it with a discharge. On the second try, we're able to hit it, and in the third one, we're able to throw the discharge through the confusion to seal the deal. We drop into the Koga fight with Spike, who takes care of the Ariados and the fortress with a couple flamethrowers. Left it for a little bit longer to build the tension, but maybe this is the case where there is no tension at all. In comes the Muck, and in comes the Savior, who is immune to anything he wants to throw at us, but it starts using Minimize. This might make hitting it harder, but we first paralyze it, and we get rid of it with some discharges. After the Muck, the Venomoth comes in, and knowing the most damaging move it has, it's Psychic, we send in Proteanish, but we're not able to do that much damage to it. We trade a Confuse Ray for a Toxic, terrible trade if you ask me, and we send in Savior. And lucky us, he hits itself twice in a row, and we're able to kill it with a discharge. Then the Crobat comes in, and we're also able to get rid of it with yet another discharge. And we keep it going with Bruno. We start with Bra into the Hitmontop, and we start headbutting with Psychic Power until we get rid of it. And we're also able to waste one of his full restores. Next comes the Hitmonchan, and knowing he's going to go for the Thunder Punch, we send in Poopa, who is immune to it, and we hit it with a Waterfall. However, it freezes us with a second Ice Punch before we can kill it with another Waterfall, and we have to switch into Flashlight, who also gets frozen by the Ice Punch. We stick around to try to kill it, as it shouldn't have anything to hit us with. Thinking that Surf would be enough to kill it, we use it, and we are lucky enough for him to switch to Onyx, who dies instantly. Now the Machamp comes in, we throw a discharge fishing for the Para, but the Cross Chop does a ton of damage, so we have to get Bra in. Cross Chop does almost nothing, and we're able to kill it with a Zen Headbutt. Machamp comes in, and with it being paralyzed, we go for another Headbutt to finish it, and finally, Hitmonchan. Now this is a tricky one since a crit would mean Bra is gone, but we stick around, we throw in a Zen Headbutt, he uses Swagger, and if we're able to hit through the confusion, it's dead. And Bra doesn't fail us, and we get past Bruno. And we get to the final Elite Four fight, Karen, and I'm going to agree with MJTV on this one. She starts with the Umbreon into Spike, and we're able to hit it with the first Focus Blast, but since she uses Double Team, we go for Flamethrower to make sure we hit. We are not able to kill it, she uses a full restore, we keep it going with Flamethrower, and the first big mistake. She switches in Houndoom on the Flamethrower, making its fire type moves stronger, and we need to keep it going with Focus Blast. We are able to hit the first one as she goes for Nasty Plot, doubling her special attack. We go for Focus Blast again, but we miss, and we die to one Dark Pulse. And this looks pretty bad. We send in Flashlight, who is able to take the Dark Pulse and kill it with Surf, but now we don't have an answer for the Vileplume. We send in Savior, who at least is resistant to its attacks, and we paralyze it, but we are at half health, and it's looking pretty bad. We try to stop the Petal Dance with a Supersonic, but we miss, doesn't really matter as it's confused anyway. We're able to throw a discharge, and we send in Proteanish. In that turn, it snaps out of confusion and does some damage to us. We go for the Confuse Ray, and it gets paralyzed. We might be able to turn this around. We start using feint attacks, but it has Moonlight to recover some health. So it's going to be a matter of keeping it going, since any of our water types dies to the Petal Dance, and Ice Beam would be the only thing we have against this. We keep it going with the feint attacks, it keeps going for Moonlight when it's low health, and Petal Dance when it can, and it leaves Proteanish with 4 HP, so we need to switch if we don't want to lose it. We end up going for more feint attacks, as anything we throw in will instantly die. We get lucky, and it hits itself, and we're able to finish the Vileplume with another feint attack. Now we face the Gengar with our answer in dire straits, so we need to bring in Poopa, who takes a good licking. I completely forgot that this thing had Levitate, and we waste a turn, but he misses the Shadow Ball. We go for Yawn to try to stop it, but is able to hit a Focus Blast, which is a crit, and Poopa is gone. We send in Bra, who would not take a Shadow Ball that well, but he misses, and we're able to land a Zen Headbutt. And then the Gengar goes for Destiny Bond. When we kill it with Zen Headbutt, and Bra is gone too. We send in Flashlight into her Umbreon, and to be honest, at this point I didn't know what to do. Like, the run was done unless I had an unreal amount of luck. We go for serve that does nothing to it, and we die to a feint attack and a payback. We send in Saviour, who at least is faster, or so I thought, but we finish it with a discharge. But then the Murkrow comes in and finishes both Saviour and Proteanish. After a defeat like this, it's the manager who needs to take the scene. Bracky, the Pallet Town Journal. The expectations for this season were very high, but the team has not been able to deliver. Who do you think is responsible for this defeat? First of all, thank you all for being here. When a team with this talent loses after the effort they've put out there, the only person to look at is the manager. I take full responsibility for this, and I'm only looking forward to the next chance we have to prove how good this team can be. Yes?
Hi, Tom Chris, the Unrestrained. There have been a couple of decisions regarding the team build-up and strategies that might have been the cause of the defeat. Any comments on that?
Well, it all went according to plan during the first half, but in the last fight, it all falls apart with an unlucky miss from Spike. And from that point on, the whole plan crumbles. Is it true that we could have planned better? Yes, but losing to RNG is just part of the game. Next.
In previous seasons, the planning of the team seemed more thought out from the beginning of the season, but in this case, it looked like the team selection was mostly whatever was available. Do you think this has had an impact on the results?
Well, first of all, I'd like you to apologise to the players. They have done their best and they've come a fight and a half away from the championship. Secondly, this season we've only counted with half of the game, as after this there's the whole Kanto part, which means the players have not developed as far as they could have been, and they haven't been able to learn the moves that might have meant victory. I am not going to talk about referees or game designers in here, but if I speak, I'm in big trouble.
But like I said, after a defeat like this, what's the next step? What's the future for the team and manager?
Well, I will put my charge for the board to decide if I stay in my post or not, but I would really like moving forward with this team onto bigger challenges. And regarding the players, you never know in this business, but I'm 100% sure they're going to do great wherever they play. Well, that's all. Thank you.